Hey everybody out there, my name is Dragnix, and yeah, it's been a little bit, hasn't it? I know, I haven't posted any real videos on the channel for almost a month now, and I get that people are a little concerned in terms of where has Dragnix gone? I didn't go a couple weeks without streaming, where is Dragnix gone? I'm here, guys. It's just that moving across the country, starting a new job, moving into a new place with my girlfriend, that took some time. And it's still going to take some time because we still don't have everything we need. We've got a couch, sort of, kind of, in terms of a daybed, but we really do need to find one that actually works for the space. We've got a bunch of other things to get done, but that's not what this video is for. This video is to talk about the channel, how everything's going, and what I'm going to do going forward, because yes, there will be changes on this channel, and in particular, there will be a big change that I think some people will enjoy, but I understand others may have a little bit of hesitancy towards. So let me get right into it. Let's start with the obvious elephant in the room, the reviews. Now, I have been sort of going back and forth on things. This channel originally was designed to be a gateway for players to find those indie titles or those mid-level titles that they may not have heard of, but want to find, and find those gems out there. And the thing is that with the review formats I have, in particular my main review format, it doesn't necessarily do well in that area. Yes, I go into a lot of detail. I go into a heck of a lot of detail in terms of being able to match the game to you, but with that said, that takes time and effort, and I don't have a problem doing that time and effort, but for all the effort that I put out to do maybe one big review in a month, I could have covered 3 indie games and matched them to somebody that really wanted it. And so I've been thinking in the background on how I'm going to handle that. The fact is that I am doing 2 streams a week of indie games, or something of an indie-like status. And even though I may expand that to the more AA or single A titles, it's more the fact that people come to this channel mostly for the reviews. And so I have a solution. Granted, it's a solution that's got a little bit of flair to it and will take some time to get up and running. But, well, let me just show you. In my mind, when it comes to those indie titles, it's not a question of whether they're good in terms of this channel. When I do a review on something, especially lately, most of the time it's going to be having some sort of audience. The amount of games that are out there, the amount of good quality games that are there, there's something for everybody. But it's a matter of matching those little elements from each of those games to the type of player that wants to play it. And thus, I will be introducing a new type of review on the channel. The Tome Review. Yes, Tome, not Tomb. The idea behind the Tome Review is that a game is a collection of certain qualities, aka spells, that have certain attributes that draw people to them. Whether it be action, whether it be specific types of strategy, whether it be the control set itself, whether it be the number of frames that it has per second. So let me show you the core of the new review format here. This is a spell. It's got elements that will be consistent across all reviews of the Tome Review type. So for example, whenever you see a Blizzard spell, regardless of the game, that means it is an attribute of slow, methodical, yet technical gameplay. That description may apply to a game a little bit differently. How a game is slow and methodical with technical gameplay could be different from an RTS to a first-person shooter, but the idea is that the core concept is the same. You want slow, methodical, yet technically smart strategic gameplay, this game has that attribute. The spell name is really for just flavor purposes. I do want to add a little bit more creativity into the reviews, and I feel like this is one way of doing it. And the fact is that if you see the spell of Blizzard on a review, you'll know that, oh, it's slow technical gameplay, and you'll sort of remember that over time. So when you hear that word Blizzard, yeah, you'll probably be like, oh, let me take a look at that game if you just sort of have it on in the background. It's also not going to be just simple spells like Fire and Blizzard that you would expect from like a Final Fantasy game. I will go out there in terms of using spells and skills from games like Divinity Original Sin 2. You know, if you've played that game, that those skills are very, very specific. And yeah, I will apply them based on what the description of that spell does and apply that to an attribute for the game that I am talking about. Now, what's the purpose of all this? Well, eventually, and I'm going to keyword eventually there, what I'm going to do is make a website, and I'm going to put a search engine in that site or a search box where you can look up those specific attributes so that you can find games that are tailor-made to you. I'll also put them in tags within the reviews themselves because the whole website thing, it's going to be more of a phase 3, phase 4 kind of thing. That's way in the future. But for now, I will tag the game on the actual video itself, as well as put it in the Steam Curator in its own playlist lists. So you can search on them hopefully there. Now, of course, I'm not going to get away with just putting an attribute on the screen. I will explain how it applies to the game, but it will be a shorter segment. I am aiming for 60 seconds for the explanation of a spell for each review, and that's to keep the review format relatively short. As to the number of spells in each review, that's what I'm going back and forth on. I want a minimum of 6 because I feel like you need at least that many to explain some of the games that I will be covering, but I don't know what the maximum will be yet. I don't want it to be a format that gets completely out of control, but I want it to be descriptive in terms of describing the game and catching those attributes that people are looking for. You also are probably noticing the number in the corner here. That's the amount of magic that it costs to make the spell go, and it will be different for each game depending on the game's competency for that spell. So the higher the amount of MP, the stronger the spell is, thus the stronger that element is in that game. Some games have certain elements like good frame rates, but it may not be as strong as other games in that element, and thus I do want to represent that in some way. Now, I will admit that is a little bit out there in terms of, aren't you just making things a lot more complicated? And I may drop the MP idea altogether, but part of the reason I'm doing this video right now is to get some feedback on this review format as a whole, because I do think it will be something that I will enjoy making and I feel like you guys can use. But I do want to get your feedback because I know that you come to this channel for games, for reviews. And there's one specific reason why I'm doing this. It's to make things easier and make it so that I can get content out on a more regular basis. The fact is that I can identify certain elements of games within the first 5, 10, 15 hours, and I will still disclose how many hours I played on a game that is maybe not finished. I don't think I will call those tome reviews just yet, but you will know exactly what I did in that game or not. And the thing is that even with these streams, these 2-a-week streams, I may be able to play a little bit more off stream and then be able to convert that into a video that I can give to you guys. And the fact is, this is more formatted. This is something that each spell is going to have a specific structure to it, and I can sort of just drop, drag, and play. Yes, I got to explain it, but I also have an already big structure for me to work off of, so it should sort of pipeline the review process. Now, I know what you're thinking. Dragnix, one of the reasons I came to this channel, and one thing that I've always heard from people, is that they like the enhancer system. And the fact is that what would I do with the scoring system that I have really championed all this time? Well, first of all, the big reviews like on games like Persona 5, for example, that would still have those big scoring reviews. But I will still include a scoring system for these tome reviews. I just won't go into the amount of detail that you would expect that you saw in the past. And it will also probably become with a caveat that a good amount of these games are probably ones that I haven't finished. Again, this is to get more eyes on smaller indie titles, on those mid-level titles, and match it to you. And to do that with a job, with a life that, I'm starting up in Florida, I do have to not cut corners somewhere, but I do have to take shortcuts in where I'm going. But I will always inform you all of exactly what's going on. This evolution of a review format also comes for another reason. It's my stance and my view of the gaming industry as a whole. If I looked back about 6 or 8 years ago, yes, there were a lot of good games out there that I never got to play. But in terms of games that were bad, there were a good amount of bad games that got publicity that, you really shouldn't have. And yes, there were games that you would come across that looked good, and lo and behold, they just sucked all the time. They didn't even have specific audiences. I feel like with the concentration of so many developers and so many different places to play games nowadays, it's just to the point where it's not about whether or not you pick up a good game. It's about picking up a good game of a certain type. Yes, a game can be bad in certain elements, but I feel like as I've evolved as a critic, I've evolved in terms of seeing even a game that I may not necessarily have liked and being able to say, this game is for X amount of people. This game is for this type of person. And yes, that was the whole point of the enhancer review portion of my review system, and it was always designed to be a match between consumer and producer. And it usually was on the consumer side in terms of, they would probably use this more. I'm gonna be honest here. The amount of games that I see that get overlooked on a yearly basis, ones that don't even get 5,000 copies sold, that have real big strengths and would be perfect for the right person out there, I almost feel like I've got to give a little bit more attention to the producers, and in particular, giving more attention to those little guys and being able to produce more reviews and match it to you guys. Now, that won't change how I go about things. I will play a game, I will take my notes, I will say, okay, this works for this type of person, I'm going to turn the sound off in order to get an understanding of what this person is able to do with it, and so on and so forth. But I hope you understand why I'm wanting to do this sort of radical change on the channel in terms of the review format. The fact is, I feel like it needs to evolve along with the channel itself. Now, regulars on this channel are probably sitting here going, Dragnix, you've mentioned this review format up until I think July or August of last year. Why haven't you just done it? Why haven't you, just put it out there and see what the reaction is? Well, for a couple of reasons. First, I needed to understand whether or not this was doable in terms of my design of it. The thing is that when it comes to qualities of games, it can be very, very easy for someone to misinterpret it based on the genre that you apply a certain trait to. When I say a game is like Dark Souls, what does that mean for an RPG? What does that game mean for something like an action game? What does it mean for combat? What does it mean for, presentation? The way that you word these things, the way that you word these spells is vastly important. And part of this process has been going through some of my old reviews, games that I've played, and keying out, okay, I need to change this language a little bit. Hell, I'm still doing that right now, and I probably will still be doing that for the next month or two. But there's also another reason why I haven't done it. and it's my inability to do graphic design. Yes, I'm going to bring this right back up. This looks hideous, and I know it does. And despite my best efforts to learn, I am not a person who is very good at design. In fact, the funny part about this is I talk about like Yakuza fashion in the streams, and yet for some reason, I can't seem to put these things well together. So I'm going to take some advice from ACG, who mentioned it on Twitter, and I'm probably going to get somebody on Fiverr or a equivalent site to make up these sort of titles and these elements of this review so that I can reuse them. I can, change the colors easily, make everything that I need and pay them a good amount of work for their work. Granted, I got to be careful because I just moved. We're picking up, new things like a couch, so I got to be careful on that. But this is part of the reason I want this to be a great execution in terms of, introducing this format. And, well, if it looks ugly, people are just going to run away. Woo. Okay, so I know this was an update video, and I've only talked about the new review format so far. But what else to talk about on the channel? Well, I'm going to link to the Discord below again, because the Discord has gotten a little bit more lively lately. The fact is that more people are joining, and I am able to answer questions and able to talk to people more about maybe the smaller things I don't talk on the channel about, like news and, other things in video games and anime and so on and so forth. I do have to put the rules together. I've been telling myself that I need to put the rule bot up, and it's one of these weekends that I will eventually do that. But I would recommend for you to join the Discord. The fact is that people are allowed to share whatever they want in that. Granted, adult portions in the adult chat, secret chat for more sensitive issues. But, if you find a creator that is got a view that you want to, give a little bit of attention to, that's the perfect place to do it. As for myself, I have to admit something. I have been just sort of worn down a little bit lately. And that's part of the reason why you guys haven't gotten content. A lot has changed over a month and a half. A lot has changed. Move states, new job, learning a whole new system that has a little bit of complication to it, but looks fun and interesting work. Entirely new sort of living situation, living with my girlfriend. Having to pick up more furniture, more items, going out a little bit more than I used to. There's been a lot of change, and I will admit it sort of drugged me down a little bit in terms of my energy levels. There's just a lot to do. And while I want to keep on, making content for this channel, I do enjoy this. I do have to put certain things first. And when it comes to the job, when it comes to the girlfriend, they come first over this. Granted, I will probably not stop doing this, at least for a little while. There may be a time eventually where I step back and say, what? I've enjoyed my time creating videos, but I need to, do something else. But I don't think it's time yet to give it up. And in terms of this sort of new review format, I'm excited of what I can do with it and maybe get eyes on the channel that never have been there before. And being able to, match that game to you that you love. Some of the best comments on this channel and some of the reasons why, even when I did this full time, that I never considered it a full failure was those comments of, I found this game because of you and it's changed my perception of games. It's changed how I look at things. It's literally one of my favorite games that I've ever played. Thank you. And those moments where you find that you've helped someone out, yeah, that's still worth it. That is completely worth every minute that I put into these videos. And so, yeah, I'll still keep on doing things. It just may not be at the rate that people would want, per se. As for upcoming reviews, this is where things get a little bit weird. I don't know what I'm going to review next. I thought I was going to do The Legend of Bumbo, but I just don't I've just had trouble talking about it. I thought maybe Slay the Spire, but I'm way too addicted to that game to even think about how design elements work on it. I'm going to play it by ear right now, and I don't want to promise anything that I can't deliver. And again, with the other review format, yeah, that may be wise for me to do. But you may see more free-form first impression videos, at least over the next several weeks. Maybe not something huge in terms of a full review, but more so, here's the idea of this game, here's what it does well, here's what it does poorly, so on and so forth. What I will say is that there will be 2 streams a week. At least 2 streams a week. And they will be focusing on indie titles. Now, I will still play a big game, probably for the 3rd slot, if I am able to do it that week. And on weeks that I can't find 2 games that I really want to cover, it will probably fill in that slot. Yes, Yakuza is something that I still want to continue playing, and yes, I will eventually finish it. I promise. Also, on top of all of this, I also want to convert from Adobe Premiere Pro and things that I've learned in there to something called like Resolve. Look, here's the deal. Premiere Pro, I have no problem with software as a service. I am a software engineer. As long as the value's there of what you're giving me for the product in question and the updates you are giving me are worthy, I think that's okay. I know a lot of people have problems with software as a service, but the fact is that if you're getting free updates all the time and you're getting new functionality and it's updating based on, new security protocols, it does take work and it does take money to be able to continually improve it. The thing with Premiere Pro is that hasn't happened in my eyes. It's only gone backwards the last few years, at least in what I use it for. And I've gotten to the point where the idea of spending $9.99, $14.99, $19.99 a month for a suite that gets worse and worse over time, yeah, I just don't see why I should continue to do that. Now, with that said, the free alternatives, there are some good free alternatives out there, and in particular, I understand that Resolve, aka DaVinci Resolve, is one of the best ones out there, but it takes time to learn. And so I think with the review format change, I'm going to try to learn DaVinci Resolve in the background too. And I will try to share what I learn from it with you guys in the Discord. And finally, for those who are curious, I do have a new build setup in terms of my recording area. And, well, here is some of what you can see in that. All right, showing you my gaming office. I do have a work office that's separate from it, and I'll show you a little bit of that. But this is my setup. 2 monitors. There's a 3rd for when I hook in something from the Elgato. And it's a pretty reasonable space for what I'm doing in terms of recording, doing some little projects here and there. That's a Zelda duvet cover that I haven't had a chance to use, but it really covers that wall nicely. As you can see, there is video game art all over the place, things from Nier Automata. There's some anime mixed in there with like Dragon Maid and Konosuba. And, well, getting a closer look here, this is my, sort of workspace. And yeah, I love video game art. Obviously, you can see there that Sonic one in particular I'm a really big fan of because that was given by my sister. So pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Nothing too out of the ordinary in terms of setup. Got a little streaming tool there. You got the Philips Hue wireless connector, or the wireless router kind of thing. Controllers, some Overwatch art. I know people were curious about it, but there it goes. That little card is for when I'm doing a little electrical projects, so little things that I want to, mess around with, like a Raspberry Pi or some other small programming elements. And yes, I do have a Wandersong button, as mentioned, on various streams. It's a nice little setup. I've got a lot of room to work with, and most of the wiring, as you can see there, it's under the table or, mounted in the back where you can't see a lot. So it is nice to be able to have a room of my own. And for those who are curious, I do have an office space as well. Again, obviously Danganronpa is going to start the office space. This is for my work, but on the other hand, still a lot of video game artwork. You know, a Junkrat drinking tea, some dragons, and some other things on the table there. You got my Valhalla, one of my favorite pieces that I own in here. Yeah, it's a little bit messy, I understand that, but, you know, it does do the job. Got a nice female Link there, too. I really actually like that piece as well, and a Mercy Pillow, of course. And for those who are curious, I do have some lighting in the back of these monitors here, and I'm going to just show a little bit of it, at least I'm going to try to. As you can see, it does light up, and it's one of the reasons why I wanted to use a corner here, because it does reflect off the walls very well. There's one monitor, or one light for each monitor, so I don't need strip lights or anything like that. It just does the job with the two main lights in question. So it's a nice setup. I really do think that I can build off of it as well, but it does the job and makes a recording situation pretty easy. Anyway, I know this was a long video. I know this is a lot of me just blabbering on. Leave your comments in the comments section below, and I'm gonna get back to things, you know? Whole new world. Later. And as always, keep on gaming.